Hi, it's Penny Black and Jill Foster here for day 5 in our week-long Winter Wonderland video series featuring Penny Black's newest Scenic stamps. And today's featured stamp is this beauty 40-877 Streaming. And in this series, I've been sharing 2 cards in each video featuring the same Scenic stamp. The first card featuring a simple non-painting technique and the second a more layered and painted design. So here's a look at both of the cards we'll be creating in today's video. And we'll go ahead and get started with the first technique that requires no watercoloring, has a really sort of classic style, and it's really easy to do, but quite beautiful in the end. So I am stamping using my MISTI stamp positioning tool onto Strathmore smooth paper, Bristol paper, and I'm inking this up here using Archival ink, and I'm focusing on just one section at a time of the image. The mini Archival ink sizes allow me to sort of position that ink pad onto the areas of the stamp that I want to put it on, but I do watch if I get any in an area where I don't want that color. I just wipe it off of the stamp using my fingertip before I stamp it. You can also, also keep a paper towel handy and wipe it off that way too. I first stamped with the light blue, and then I just added a little bit of shading, adding a touch of a darker blue in a few spaces here and there. And as always, down in the YouTube description box, you will find a complete listing of all the supplies I'm using, like the ink colors, the markers, the paints, papers, and of course, the Penny Black stamps and dies will be listed and linked to our online store down in that YouTube description box as well. So here for the trees, I first started with a lighter color. I'm going to stamp it a couple of times just to darken it up. Then I'm going to take a Tombow dual brush marker, color directly onto the stamp, but not extend it quite as high. So not going all the way up into the tree, just more along the trunk and the center of the tree. And you can see this just adds some color variation. Now when you color directly on your stamp, you want to use a water-soluble marker. But other than that, any ink pads you use for this technique, you can just use whatever you have and whatever colors that you like, because we're not adding any water on top. And I'm just getting that horizon line there and a couple other spots. And that is it. And you have created that beautiful scene. Now to finish this off, I'm using our Stitch Circles creative die, as well as a sentiment from our new transparent set 30-921 Feeling of Christmas. And here is a look at the finished card. I love using the circle die and sort of spotlighting just a section of that scenic stamping. You can see that variation of color on the water and on the trees just adds so much. It's just a simple step that adds even more to your scene. So now we'll move on to the second technique. This adds a bit of watercoloring and stamp layering for an artsy look, but it's still very doable. And this also shows some of the versatilities and opportunities to get the most from these stamps by switching up your color schemes or doing different layers that you can combine with the original or the main stamp. So for this one, because I am going to blend this out with water, now the ink pads that I choose, I want those to be water soluble, and my favorites for this are just distress ink pads. The mini size is really nice for positioning it onto the stamp. You can see there I used some turquoise, the evergreen bow, and then a little darker blue. I stamped that down and I've grabbed my paintbrush. I just have a cup of water off camera there and a paper towel. I dip the paintbrush in the water, dab it off on the paper towel, then move to the paper to sort of blend that and create sort of a smooth flowing look. It looks like then it was just hand painted onto the card. It is key and very helpful, at least for me, to use the Bristol paper for this and to also work section by section. So that just helps the blending go much easier. You can see how quickly I was able to do that. I've moved on now to my trees. You can layer the color by stamping it more than one time to sort of darken it up. And then now I'm going to just add a little bit more darker color here onto the trunks, just like I did before. Using a Tombow dual brush pen, that point of the marker helps me to get right where I want it on the stamp, and it also is water soluble, so here I can go in with that paintbrush and some water and blend it out. I'm not worried about this blending out perfectly. That's a lot of little tiny branches. It doesn't need to be perfect. That's the beauty of watercolor. That flowing look, I think, really adds to the artistic effect. If you overblend a little bit and things start to become more of a puddle, you can dry it and just restamp it on top and recapture that detail. Just kind of what I'm doing here. And of course I love to fiddle, so I probably add about 3 more layers that I didn't need to do, but it's fun to just keep adding and building up that design. So I'm just deciding here to add a little bit more color down at the bottom. And then I'm going to take that same ink pad that I was stamping with, press it onto an old acrylic block, add a little bit of water to that, and just sort of extend some shadows here under the trees and off to the side on the snow. This is a really simple thing to do, but I think it really adds to the scene, makes it feel a little bit more full and realistic. I don't get too technical about where the shadows go. I just add a few here and there along the edges, and that is good enough for me. And then you can even pick up, paint from palette or from the ink pad like I've pressed on the acrylic block and paint right onto your image if you want to add extra color or blending. So here I wanted to add a little bit of color to the sky. I pressed that Distress ink pad onto my acrylic block, and I am just picking it up with some water and adding that to the sky. I don't want to get too close to those branches on the trees because they were stamped with water-soluble ink. They'll start to bleed and blend if water touches it again. So I am just mostly putting this towards the upper part of the card. Just using it very sparingly in and around the branches. Now you could stop there, but I think it is so fun to keep adding and building with these stamps and adding to your scene. So I've grabbed 30-258 Prancers. This has like the best 3 trees. If you like to add to your scenic stamps, these are really fun to work with. You have different sizes that you can use, and they're just really neat. So I'm going to go ahead and pick off one of these here. Now I've used a piece of Eclipse masking paper right along that horizon line. You could use a post-it note. It's just a straight line. So anything that you have on hand will work well for that, because I just want the tips of these trees to be showing over here on the background. So I'm going to just position that. I'm going to ink it up using my Distress inks and follow the same process as I did before. Ink it up, stamp, and then blend with the paintbrush afterward. Patting that paintbrush off on the paper towel before coming to the paper really does help not to completely blend everything out or add too much water. And I wanted to just darken that up a little bit more, so I just restamped it even while it was still a little bit wet, and that will also give you more of a watercolor look too. You can also mist your stamps, so ink them up and mist them with water and then stamp, and that is beautiful as well. I get a little nervous doing that I've had where I mist way too much, or one area gets misted well and the other is really blobby, and so I just find I like to have that paintbrush handy to go back and blend it and give it that watercolor look. And I'm just layering it up a couple of times here. And I love that reveal when you pull back the mask and your scene keeps growing. Now I decided to add a tiny little tree over here on the right hand side, just so I had that green color sort of pulling the eye across in a diagonal way across the design. It ends up looking a little bit short, but I'm just going to call it a little baby Christmas tree. Now this is another great stamp where you can use it for Christmas cards, but you can also use it, like I've said before, you can use these for New Year's cards, thank you cards, birthday cards, masculine cards, just a winter hello or winter thinking of you. So these scenic stamps are quite versatile and they're just so fun to play with. And to finish this off, all I've done is stamp the sentiment from our new transparent set, Feeling of Christmas. And here is a look at that finished card. I thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Hit that bell notification so you're notified whenever we post a new video. And I hope you will be here with me tomorrow for our last video of this week-long Winter Wonderland video series. Thanks for watching and happy stamping.